What's up guys? Today I want to discuss a topic that I feel quite passionately about, and it's a topic that's certainly important to millions of other people around the world. It's also highly controversial, which makes it all the more interesting, and that is the topic of the Zyzz Ideology. So for me, the story of Zyzz, or Aziz Shaverjian, which was his name, it draws a lot of similarities to the life and story of another man who was called J.R.R. Tolkien, who you'll probably know as the author of the Hobbit book and the Lord of the Rings book trilogy. So these are two men whose lives and stories had very humble beginnings, and they eventually went on to, during the course of their life, create their kind of masterpiece, or their work that they were best known for. And sadly, by the time of their passing, the work would never be completed. It would never be properly explained or properly finished. The whole Zyzz legacy is a very divisive issue in the bodybuilding and fitness world and beyond, and I think that's partly to do with the fact that it's been a little bit misinterpreted and it's been kind of hijacked by some people, but I think the Zyzz ideology is actually a force for good. I want to go over several aspects of the Zyzz ideology and give a balanced view of how I think it should be interpreted so that most people can benefit. So this next clip introduces the first concept of the Zyzz philosophy and lifestyle. Be a sick cunt, not a hard cunt. The idea here is that your aesthetics should matter to you always. So fighting isn't always going to be the best way forward. In fact, it's not really advisable at all.
Neither bear really wants to fight. The risks of injury are too great.
If the juiciness of your delts matter to you so much, for example, then consider too how your nose and your teeth look and just the rest of your features look if you're kind of constantly getting into fights and you're just brawling all the time. However, there will of course be times where confrontation is inevitable, but with a little bit of intimidation, you'll probably still find that a non-violent approach proves best.
Most other bears simply give him their catch and go out to find more. He's been getting away with it for years.
Or worst case scenario, if there is a fight, at least you have your gains. So personally, I live near Newcastle in the UK, which is hardly the slums of Brazil, but there's a lot of nightlife, a lot of drinking, a lot of people. So every time I go out, there is still a very good threat of violence. On nights out and in general, I've applied this kind of non-confrontational approach, and it's been hugely beneficial for me, as throughout my entire life I've never had to get into a fight before, and I've still got all my teeth. So next we're going to look at never pay people out or put them down. Now this is probably one of the best known quotes by Aziz himself, but that does also mean that it's probably one of the most misinterpreted parts of the Zyzz ideology. There are a lot of Zyzz fans kind of running around using this quote at any time when someone gives negative feedback, they make a criticism. I don't think that's kind of the way in which to use it, and it's more kind of applying to people who just go out and make unprovoked, really harsh kind of personal attacks. So what this means is, first, you need to make sure that your own criticisms of other people, unless you're kind of just trolling or joking about, you need to kind of make sure that they are kind of positive and constructive in some way. Second, if someone makes a criticism of you, such as, then you shouldn't respond negatively to this person and kind of just turn on them with a response like, and you should instead maybe kind of consider something positive and constructive in return, such as. But if someone is literally kind of calling you out and it's unjustified, then of course you have the right to kind of respond back and attack them if you wish. Here's an example from 2011 by Aziz himself, when he responded to someone who was calling him out on the MISC. So basically what was going on here was less than a month before Aziz passed away, a member of the MISC had called him out, and it was very likely a troll, but either way the response from Aziz was quite epic, and it gives a good example. And here's how not to do it.
And also I threw on enough gear that's probably more than you can lift, just because I thought it would be funny to be wearing enough hardware that's more than you could actually lift with all the ammo and the 200 rounds of ammo and everything I'm carrying.
So up next.
Every little fucking hater's gonna hate, bro.
So this is about embracing the environment around you. If you're receiving hate for something, the chances are that's because you're doing something with your life, quite simply. And people will interact with you differently to show feelings such as approval or disapproval. Emotions such as jealousy and admiration and hatred, they make this environment all the more chaotic and exciting. So the idea of let the haters hate is about being thick-skinned about all of this and kind of going through life and accepting that criticism is a key part of it. Personally, I'd say that it's important to listen to all criticisms, and instead of simply
blocking out the haters,
you need to be able to sift through all remarks and consider even those criticisms that may be delivered with harshness and a kind of negative approach by someone else. If your actions don't harm others, then you should feel free to just be yourself and to kind of just remember to have your own style and to form your own opinions. In this video, I myself am giving my own interpretation of the Zyzz ideology and I'm forming my own views. So next, appearance. I think the idea here is that aesthetics is really just about looking good and looking healthy and being healthy too. Nowadays everyone's just obsessed with the little details of how you look, but the most sure way of being more kind of universally appealing to people is to simply just be healthy and to look healthy. An article I recommend you read is given below in the description, which is from Wikipedia, but it kind of gives a good idea of getting across the main points that need to be considered. With regards to Zyzz, who by no means lived by an example of good health.
Get some lunch. We'll be back in about 20 minutes.
He was able to offset poor inner health by simply looking like a god. I think that the best way forward is to find some sort of balance between your health and your appearance, but especially in terms of health, you obviously want to kind of maximize it if possible. So a good start would be kind of, say for example, looking after your teeth, whereas something like blasting tren year round is probably kind of less advisable. Your teeth, skin and hair are just some of the main indicators of your own health, and they are kind of under your own control, and therefore the Zyzz ideology is about these types of things. It's about trying to improve them, to improve your own appearance. So the word aesthetics is central to the Zyzz ideology, and it's a topic that's certainly very, very subjective, as everyone's tastes and preferences are different, so there is no one solution. But we can really help ourselves by kind of remembering in the back of our minds that we are all just animals, and we are all programmed to seek out the most attractive and compatible mate, and that's where physical attraction comes from. So we can broadly make some points that will help you 99% of the time, and that would be to look after your hair, skin and teeth, to hold good posture, to maintain a good and healthy body composition, and then for males in particular, to develop a V-shaped torso, and then also to maintain a high shoulder to waist ratio. Our goals of building muscle go some way to kind of support these characteristics, and that's why the idea of aesthetics in the Zyzz ideology can actually be really beneficial to your wider life. But we must come back to the fact that physical attractiveness is not everything, and that arguably your own inner health is more important when you look at the bigger picture. So the pursuit of aesthetics must come with an appreciation of balance. And lastly, Veni, Vidi, Vici. So this is a quote that many of us have heard before, and the idea is to basically just be the best at whatever you decide to do. As Zyzz points this out on his old form spring when somebody asks him, what words do you live by? If you're going to put time and effort into something, then make sure that you give it your full focus, as much enthusiasm and energy as possible too. And that applies to, say for example, the gym. If you're going to the gym, you're training at the gym, and then you're coming home, then make sure that whilst you're there, you're pushing yourself hard. And of course, when you come home, that you're eating enough so that you're actually going to grow and you're not just wasting your time. And the same applies to your studies and other activities. If you're going to be giving years of your life to education, then fuck aiming for B's and C's and focus on A stars and A's instead. The idea of winning and being the best carries some sort of social stigma nowadays, but we need to realise that in order to have success, we need to conquer life in some way, shape or form. So after covering the more philosophical sides of the Zyzz ideology, I can say that I agree with basically all of the points made by Zyzz, but I do think that it's important that we interpret them properly and we make them as complete as possible so that we can actually apply them in our own lives. So in this next part, I want to discuss training and nutrition. So let's first of all look at training style. And we need to consider realistic expectations for natural lifters and how they can move in the direction of having a physique like Zyzz. So it's obvious at first, or at least it should be obvious, that we need a lot of food. We need to be bulking for a long time to be getting this level of size. And that is something that Zyzz did preach.
So basically you have to keep eating and it takes time. It's not a quick fix, so just keep eating.
This culture is heavily focused on the idea of being shredded, or at least just looking lean year round. But I would say an obsession with this is quite unintuitive for natural lifters, and they should be using the idea of cutting down quite sparingly, as they need to spend more time gaining a good level of mass first, or else they'll just look skinny when they do eventually decide to cut down. You also need to lift heavy and you need to lift frequently. So this kind of goes against what Zyzz preached, as he himself suggested using something known as a bro split, which is basically where you train each muscle, or at least body part, once per week. You really need to be training everything at least twice per week so that you can get more volume and frequency in during the course of the week, and that will help you get more long-term growth. But one thing I do agree with Zyzz on is that compound lifts are really important, especially for natural lifters.
You've got to be doing compound squatting, deadlifting. That's what's going to make your body. And I'm telling you right.
So now we'll look at diet. Zyzz suggested using a 40-40-20 diet plan, which basically involves a ratio by which you get 40% of your calories from protein, 40 from carbs, and then 20 from fats. I would suggest instead trying a diet plan whereby you get 20% of your calories from fat, you get 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and then you get the rest of your calories from carbohydrates, both complex and some simple. This level of fat in your diet will maintain healthy hormone levels, and it will also kind of keep down excess fat stores in your body. This level of protein will ensure a positive nitrogen balance, which is important for gaining new muscle, and it will also keep you out of a catabolic state by which you lose muscle. So a good video on this I found by Vici, which I'll kind of tag down below, which gives a more kind of in-depth view of why this is the case. Getting the rest of your calories from carbohydrates will ensure that you have high levels of glycogen stored within your muscles, which will lead to more stamina, energy and strength when you're in the gym, which is really important. A good video on this I've got also down below in the description box by Vegan Gains, which I think is a good video to watch too. With regards to bulking and cutting, Zyzz is right in saying that you first of all need to work out your daily caloric expenditure, which is basically the number of calories that you burn each day, and it's typically between 3,000 and 4,000. And then you need to add or subtract a certain number of calories in order to bulk or cut. And this number will determine how fast you gain or lose weight. So this concept is the single most important thing for anyone involved in bodybuilding, who's just concerned about their health or is involved in kind of athletics or sports of some type. And that's simply because it determines how fast you grow and how different you look each day in the mirror. So with regard to food, Zyzz was a real big fan of meats such as steak and kangaroo, and then fish also, in particular tuna. So he was so much into these food types that he actually went so far as to say that meat is kind of necessary for building muscle. I personally find that this isn't the case, and that meat and fish are far from being the best type of things you could be putting into your body in terms of your health. So that would relate to mercury poisoning for tuna, but then also all types of cancer for meat and fish in general. Making sure that you're not going too far with protein and not trying to get that level too high will allow you to use the space in your diet to get in more carbohydrates, which is your body's preferred energy source. Also, the meat and fish types that you find in the supermarket are usually far less cost effective than other alternative foods. Zyzz was, however, fond of foods such as spinach and oats, which I agree are excellent. Oats in particular, they are very cheap and they provide you with a lot of energy, a good source of energy, and they can be ground down as well and put into some sort of a shake or drink for easy consumption. In fact, they're deemed so good that sayings such as
squats and oats equals big gains
are common in bodybuilding. On the topic of training and nutrition, there's less of an interpretation to really be made, and natural lifters especially should be looking at Zyzz's approach as being something that's probably not the best for them, but there are some good parts to still kind of come away with. So I hope that you found my interpretation to be quite fair and useful, and I'll be looking to get some more informative based videos out on this area in the future. I'll now leave you with the opening track and some motivational clips that I've put together. Thanks for watching, guys.